The clock above the counter ticked past noon as Rosie's diner buzzed with the low hum of conversation and the clink of silverware. At his usual corner booth, Frank Steele, Malone sat upright, his frame wary but commanding even at 85, his hands marked with age spots and scars from wars long past, wrapped around a chipped mug of black coffee. For years this diner had been his sanctuary, a place where the smell of bacon and fresh pie drowned out memories of jungles and battlefields. The door swung open with a metallic jingle, and in swaggered Tyler Briggs, a wary thug with more tattoos than sense. He strutted across the diner with the arrogance of someone who thought cruelty made him powerful. Spotting Frank sitting alone, Tyler smirked. "Hey old man, that's my booth, get lost." Conversation stalled and all eyes turned. Frank, calm as ever, lifted the mug and took a sip without acknowledging him. Irritation flared in Tyler's eyes. He slammed a palm on the table, rattling the silverware. "Didn't you hear me?" Frank finally looked up, his gaze sharp, a steel gray that spoke of discipline and decades of command. "Son, I've faced men with tanks and rifles. You don't scare me." The word struck a nerve and Tyler's pride twisted into rage. Without warning, his hand cracked across the veteran's face, the sound echoing like a gunshot through the room. Gasps filled the diner, and Rosie rushed from behind the counter. Frank's cheek reddened, but he didn't flinch. Instead, he set his mug down slowly, eyes locked on the thug. His voice was calm, steady, and terrifyingly certain. "You just made the biggest mistake of your life, kid." Tyler laughed mockingly and stormed out, unaware that the storm he just awakened would soon come thundering down on him. The diner had fallen into a heavy silence after Tyler swaggered out, leaving behind the bitter echo of his cruelty. Rosie hurried to Frank's side, her hands trembling as she pressed a napkin gently against his reddened cheek. "Are you all right, Frank?" she whispered, her voice thick with worry. The old veteran gave a small nod, brushing her off with the same stoic calm that had carried him through decades of hardship. "Takes more than that to knock me down," he said, though his eyes were sharper now, burning with a resolve that hadn't dimmed with age. He reached slowly into his jacket pocket and pulled out a weathered flip phone. Its edges scratched, its plastic faded from years of use. The room watched as he flipped it open, his fingers steady despite his age. For a long moment he just stared at the keypad, as if weighing the weight of the decision. Then, with deliberate care, he dialed a number he had memorized but rarely used. The line clicked and a deep voice answered, rough with gravel and engine smoke. "Yeah, Pop." It was Jack Malone, his son. A man who once carried the family name into combat zones overseas and who now carried it on the back of a Harley, riding with the notorious Hells Angels. Frank's voice was calm, but there was iron behind it. "Some punk just slapped your old man in Rosie's." There was silence, long and dangerous, as though the very air had paused to listen. Then Jack spoke, his voice low and steady. "Stay put. I'll be there in an hour." Frank closed the phone with a soft click, setting it on the table. Around him, the diner patrons exchanged uneasy looks. They all knew what was coming. Trouble was rolling their way, and it rode on two wheels. An hour later, the quiet rhythm of the small town was shattered by a sound that made windows tremble and dogs bark from their yards. The low, rolling thunder of engines, deep and unrelenting, like a storm sweeping in from the horizon. Main Street filled with the growl of Harleys as one by one, chrome beasts rolled in, their riders clad in leather vests marked with the flaming red and white insignia of the Hells Angels. Leading the pack was Jack Malone, his broad shoulders wrapped in black denim, his weathered face set in a grim scowl beneath mirrored sunglasses. He cut the engine and swung a heavy boot to the pavement. The sound sharp against the concrete, and the rest of the Angels followed, parking in formation like soldiers lining up for battle. Townsfolk peered nervously from behind curtains and shop windows, whispering prayers or clutching children close. Jack stepped into Rosie's diner, the screen door slamming shut behind him, and the atmosphere inside grew taut as a bowstring. His gaze immediately found his father, sitting proud despite the bruise swelling across his cheek. For a moment, Jack's jaw clenched, rage simmering beneath the surface, but his voice was steady as steel. "Who did it?" The room was silent until Rosie, her hands still wringing nervously in her apron, pointed across the street. There stood Tyler Briggs, boasting to a group of local lowlifes, his laughter grating against the hum of engines outside. Jack's fists curled, and without another word, he turned on his heel. The Angels rose as one, following him out the door, their boots pounding like war drums. Tyler's grin faltered the moment he saw them crossing the street. A wall of leather, steel, and vengeance. And in that instant, he knew his reckless act had set something unstoppable in motion. Tyler's cocky smirk dissolved the moment Jack Malone closed the distance, his shadow falling across the trembling thug like the edge of a storm cloud. Jack's hand shot out, fisting Tyler's collar, and with a force that rattled his bones, he slammed him against the brick wall of the hardware store. The impact knocked the breath from Tyler's lungs, leaving him choking on his own fear as the circle of Hell's Angels tightened around him, their vests and steel chains glinting beneath the afternoon sun. The roar of their parked bikes rumbled in the background like a pack of predators waiting for the command to strike. Jack's voice was low, dangerous, each word dripping with venom. "You put your hands on my father." Tyler's eyes darted frantically around the circle, searching for a way out, but all he found were cold stares that promised nothing but pain. "I didn't know he was," he stammered, but Jack cut him off with a growl. "Doesn't matter who he is. He's a man. He's my old man." The Angels pressed closer, their boots grinding gravel, making Tyler shrink further into the wall. His knees buckled, and he collapsed, hands raised in surrender. Jack gave him no sympathy, only a command. "Apologize." Tyler's voice cracked as he turned toward the diner window, where Frank sat watching with unflinching eyes. "I'm sorry, sir. I shouldn't have touched you," he muttered, his words nearly swallowed by the roar of the Harleys. Frank, steady as ever, leaned forward, his voice carrying through the glass with the weight of a lifetime. "Son, respect is something you give, not take." Jack released his grip, and Tyler scurried away, broken and humiliated. The Angels mounted their bikes, thunder filling the street again. Back inside, Jack sat across from Frank, finally smiling.